Hello there, and welcome to Sweet Shot of Time. I'm your host, Steve Barnes. Today we are recapping episode 3 of Time Bandits, which is entitled Medieval. And of course, Sweet Shot of Time, if you didn't know, is doing time-related recaps. And I want to make that clear for my guest this week as well. I'm not sure if I made that clear to him exactly why we're doing Time Bandits. I just told him we're doing Time Bandits, and he was on board.
Yeah, this week, Sweet Child of Time is going to get medieval on your ass.
Yeah, already. That's the first time that somebody has spoken before the intro. So, it's a monumental occasion. I got to bring in James first, though. So, hold tight there, fella.
Well, James is going to be one of the people getting medieval on your ass.
It's happened before. So, ahoy there, James. How you doing today?
Find water and shade, sir.
I've been trying. I'm getting interrupted by this fellow over here. And I'm going to introduce him right now from over at the House of Dragon podcast, from Double Dragon and Properly Howard. Lots of podcasts. We got your maester, Anthony Le Donne. Ahoy there, Anthony.
Yeah, happy to be here. Good morrow to both the good fellows.
Yes, sir. I'm glad you joined us. I'm always surprised when somebody that I've listened to their podcast for years and I've been a fan of theirs, and then they come on my podcast. It's a nerve-wracking thing, Anthony. Do you understand how that is? Do you have that experience when you go on other podcasts?
Yeah, no, I know, because I've done podcasting for a few years, that podcasters are just kind of regular dudes that shouldn't intimidate anyone. So knowing that about myself helps me kind of not be nervous in other people's podcasts as well. But I'm happy to be on, and I'm happy to talk about this episode. This is kind of an important episode for the major shifts of the character relationships.
That's right. You went above and beyond, and you watched episodes 1, 2, and 3, which we're talking about today.
Yeah, good. Yeah, good show. I like it. I'm glad. I would never have known to watch it. Why? Because my algorithm does not feed me this. In fact, when I go into Apple TV after watching episodes 1 and 2, it will not give me episode 3. I've got to search for it.
I've had that problem too. Yeah. It's even like number 5 currently. So you'd think the number 5 show on Apple TV would show up, but
Apple TV kind of has this history of not promoting their content, even when it's like really, really decent programming. Mm-hmm. Some of the best shows on Apple TV are just not advertising. So I'm not sure what the idea there is, but I'm happy that you pointed me in this direction, because I think this is a great show.
I agree. I love the humor. I love everything about it. I was not expecting it to be quite as Jermaine Clement style heavy as it is. Mm-hmm. And it even brought James on board. James did not really like the movie too much, but he was willing to give the show a shot. And yeah, what are you thinking about episode 3 in our story so far, James?
I'm loving it. I barely have any notes because I was just soaking it in. I do have one important note for you, Steve. You ask it every single time. So finally, I have the response you want. Okay. Yes, Nicole watched this with me.
Wow. We finally got a casual watcher. And what is our casual watcher's opinion of the show?
She said, wow, this is really good. It feels a lot like Our Flag Means Death. I was like, well, it is Taika Waititi. And she's like, wait, what? And then she's like, yeah, okay, I'll watch this.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, a lot of the people, like the side characters, like in this episode, for example, the screaming lady, she's a character in Our Flag Means Death. She's the only one I could point out in this episode.
She said the king guy, or not the king, Nottingham guy, he is, I guess, a character in there. And that's why she said, oh, yeah, this is he's in there. And this show feels a lot like that. And that's when I dropped the bomb. And she's like, hibbida hoobida, huh?
I mean, I feel like this show should get its due, and that's why I don't mind being an unpaid promoter of this show. And as I'm screaming about it pretty much every day on my Instagram, sharing something about it. And because I'm proud to be part of it, and I'm proud that it's great. I mean, everybody who's watched it so far has enjoyed it. Heather hasn't made it past episode 1 yet. But once I tell her that Nicole liked it, she might change her tune.
Is she waiting with a bated breath on Nicole's opinions on things? Should we go see Deadpool Wolverine? Well, first, what did Nicole think of it?
Okay, I wanted to switch gears a little bit from Nicole and Heather. I'm going to go back to Anthony, because you mentioned something about how we should not be intimidated by others as podcasters. And this is one of the talking points I was going to bring up in case... I mean, I really actually want to know this, because we're part of House of the Dragon Fantasy League.
Yeah.
I've talked about it on this show, and I know you've talked about it a lot on your show. You were kind enough to, invite me into the league and be part of that. And there's a person in our league. And when I first met her, Melanie, I automatically assumed that she was your older sister because of the way that she was, like, just the demeanor you guys had.
Yeah.
How did that relationship begin? And are you intimidated by Melanie as much as I am?
I'm not intimidated by Melanie.
Wow.
I think a lot of what Melanie does is a shtick. I think it's like a character based on the truth. But
Okay.
I think it's a caricature of her sort of New Jersey upbringing. She's very aggressive. She's very mean, mostly just to me, but she'll be mean to anyone.
Mm-hmm.
I invited her to kind of be our governess of the league.
Yes.
Because I wanted a personality that no one would argue with. I thought this person's going to come up with the scoring system. They're going to enforce the scoring system. They're absolutely not going to want her to breathe fire on them. Mm-hmm. And she's the perfect person to do this. On top of this, she comes off as she just hates me so much. Mm-hmm. It creates amazing content because otherwise I have like professors on my podcast and we like do deep dives into like book chapters and we talk about historical events from the medieval period. It's all very kind of civil. So every now and again, I need someone to come on and Dracarys the microphone for the enjoyment of everyone else. And I do thank you, Steve, for not winning the league. That was very kind of you. You did come in second, so congratulations.
Yeah, I won out of my group, I think, right?
Yeah, you did. You won our division for sure.
White Knives.
You got to the top of the White Knives. You couldn't quite achieve the status of Ken's team. But who could? He was just the dominating force throughout the league.
Yeah, like the combination of having your grace plus Cole, I think, was the combination that really pushed it over the edge. But why are you glad that I did not win? I don't understand, like, your reasoning.
You're the number one loser. It's good content for someone to be the loser in chief. And
okay,
so I
all right.
appreciate you taking on that role.
All right. Bring me back on one of your pods and I'll talk about it. I'd like to hear Melanie on one of your pods again, as a matter of fact. And I've told Melanie, like, I've been honest about it too. I'm glad that you don't listen to my podcast, Melanie. Like, she might listen to this one since you're on. And if she does,
then she's going to have a lot of hot takes if that's the case.
She will, no matter what. She's never mean to me. It has not happened once. But I can feel, I'm an empath like Judy. So like when she shoots those barbs at you, I can feel them.
Yeah. Hey, did you happen to know that the episode 3 was going to be medieval?
Yes.
Is that why you invited me on all right. I was wondering. I was like, this is actually right up my alley. This is perfect. This is almost like someone had some forethought into this and was scheduling on purpose.
That's correct. But first I wanted to ask you about the take of religion in this show, because you've met God and you've met the supreme being and you've met your wrongness. Yeah. So which religion would you say would be offended most by this portrayal of God and Satan?
I'm not sure that any would be offended. I think it's, sort of a play on the Judeo-Christian mythology, I guess. But both Jermaine Clement and Taika Waititi, they kind of are not the chief protagonists, but they're both comedically likable.
Yeah.
Right. So even one's supposed to be like the supreme being, one's supposed to be, pure evil or something like that. You love those guys, both good and evil. So I don't see how that could be offensive at all. Their comedic presence makes you like those characters.
Okay, I agree with that. Yeah, I was telling James, I think last episode or maybe the first episode, that like I like your wrongness and his little gang just as much as I like the Time Bandit gang, which is the gang we're supposed to be rooting for, is the Time Bandits, the ones who stole the map.
I do like that heaven feels like Cloud City, like in Empire Strikes Back. Mm-hmm. That was an interesting choice.
Yeah. And yeah, the uniforms they wear kind of match that as well.
Just add a couple cherubs to Cloud City and you got yourself... You got Taika Waititi's heaven.
Was it on the air when I asked you, Anthony, if you'd watched all 3 episodes of this, or was that before we started recording?
Probably before. I have watched all 3, and I thought this was the strongest of the 3. I thought that the first one was a little slow at the beginning, but by the end, both Sarah and I liked it. And I had to do, a lot of sort of character work, heavy lifting character work and table setting. By the time it got to episode 3, I feel like it finally hit its stride. So this, to me, was my favorite of the 3.
Interesting. It's my least favorite of the 3, honestly, because I liked episode 1 and then I loved episode 2. And I think I would have liked this episode a little bit more. I'll talk about it when we get to it, but there's like a particular thing that like made me not like it as much as the rest of them. So what's your ranking, James? What's your favorite episode so far?
I think this is the funniest one out of it, but you guys like medieval stuff, but I feel like because we are in this specific time period that a cool thing is happening, I forgot. I was like, wait, where did they go in this episode before we started recording? I was like, oh yeah, the nondescript medieval area. But maybe I'm not up to my knowledge as much as you guys, so I'm not like, oh, this is a specific time period.
I couldn't pinpoint a specific time period. I researched the Sheriff of Nottingham, and it's such a huge range of time.
Okay.
How about you, Anthony? Were you able to pinpoint a time on this?
Okay, so I'm thinking this is like 1300s or 1400s, and I've got a theory for this. I don't know if now's the time to talk about it.
Please do, yes.
Okay, so the original film, Time Bandits, John Cleese plays Robin Hood.
Correct, yes.
And I do think that this is a little homage to that little vignette.
That's one of my notes too. I agree.
And I love that little portion of the movie because it's like full on Monty Python. It has all the Monty Python vibes. And to my mind, it's kind of a satire on the redistribution of wealth.
Yes.
It's like as soon as the poor get rich and they stand in a line, you're poor, let me give you some bit of gold. Now someone punches you in the face because you're not poor anymore, you're rich.
Right.
So we hate you. So I thought that was, I've always enjoyed that little vignette. And I thought this instead flips that on its head. It's not dealing with Robin Hood. The mythology probably is 1400s of Robin Hood. It's dealing with some nondescript Sheriff of Nottingham from the same period. So my guess is either 1300s or 1400s. And in this episode, you don't have a satire on the redistribution of wealth. You have a commentary on, I guess, fascism, really. And you kind of have a light bulb moment for democracy.
Yes.
So, and you do some other stuff. There's a little superstition stuff and there's some, some religious stuff as well. But I thought this was a really smart nod to that scene in the original movie. And I thought it was pretty funny. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I did a little research on the Sheriff of Nottingham. I can confirm that. It says, according to, the trustworthy source Wikipedia, which last episode they confirmed that Wikipedia is the best place to go
of course,
for history.
Yeah.
The post of Sheriff of Nottingham only came into existence in 1449. But like the character that we enjoy as a Sheriff of Nottingham is based on individuals that existed between 1100 and 1300. And then it goes on to say that like originally the Sheriff of Nottingham's job was to make sure nobody was poaching deer out of his woods. And so, of course, his role, maybe due to fascism, maybe like a power grab, he started, doing more than just that and started demanding more of the people that lived on his land. That's what I got from Sheriff of Nottingham anyway.
Yeah, that word sheriff is actually a difficult one to track because I think it was actually invented during that period. And it's from two words, the first word being the word we get for shire. And then the second word is the word we get for reeve, which means like a steward of something. So it's like steward of the shire.
Oh, cool.
And in that way, you kind of have several successive offices that seem to emerge during this period. And interestingly enough, the first dramatic plays for the story of Robin Hood come out of around the 1400s, and they would have been performed during the May Day Festival. And we actually saw a maypole at the beginning of this episode. So a little, a little wink there to history buffs.
Yeah, I really like how this show is doing its thing and how like the aim is like for 9-10-year-old preteens to watch this. And of course, as adults too. But I think the target audience is younger and they want these kids to, learn stuff as they watch. And through repetition of watching, which is what kids love to do, I hope they learn some stuff out of this. Yeah, do you guys mind if I go on and walk us through the episode?
Let's do it.
All right. First, we're starting out with that intro scene, our intro sequence. And it's different every time, which I appreciate. That's a very Game of Thrones thing to do, is have a different title sequence. And so it's not only different images, but it's different music. They throw in different grooves, because I've watched ahead to episode 6, and they do a different style of music for every time. And last week, Anthony, we discovered that it was Mark Mothersbaugh from Devo who's doing the music for this show, not just for the title sequence, but for the entire show. The images that we see, we see, and this is consistent through episode 6. First, we see God, then we see the glasses, which represents Kevin, and then we see a black cat. We've discovered this episode that cats are evil, and James and myself are huge cat lovers. How about yourself, Anthony?
So you were asking me about the theology of the episode earlier. I think that theologically speaking, the thing that is most sort of theologically accurate is that cats are in league with the devil. Okay. They are demonic. You should not trust them. They will try to kill you.
I mean, is this your opinion, or is this like...
Oh, no. This is every major religion agrees on this. And
not my religion.
And you should be very, very afraid.
I mean, I do know at night that our cat Melissa will sometimes attack us for no reason at all, which is evil.
The people that know this best are people with cats in their house.
Is there a cat in your house? That's what I really want to know.
I'm not going to be around the demonic. Are you kidding me?
Well, every episode, though, we start out with God, and then Kevin, I guess, who represents humanity, and then we have a cat, which I guess represents evil. Then after that, you have a bunch of images of what's to come in the show. In our case, some swords and sorcery.
Yeah.
But yeah, our first scene, we meet back up with Saffron, who's just returning home. We know from the last episode that her parents have been cold. That COALED, past tense of coal.
Right.
She comes home. There's nothing to eat in the fridge, and the house is a mess, but she turns the Roomba on. She has no idea her parents have been cold at this point.
Yeah, I thought that this episode was great for her.
Yes.
It's almost the beginning of her character arc. We got a little vision of her earlier, but she was almost like prototypical big sister. Mm-hmm. This episode, she becomes an adventurer. And I thought it was great to kind of establish her as a teenager. You know, she looks in the fridge. It's all vegetable. Like that fridge looks like Whole Foods vegetable aisle was stolen. I mean, all fruits and vegetables pristine in there. Of course, nothing edible in that fridge. And I don't know what she grabs something in a package and pulls it out.
I think it's cheese is what she grabbed. I looked at it a few times. It was either tofu or cheese.
Yeah, a block of cheese was the only thing processed enough for her to care about at all. Then we get to see her go on a little adventure. She finds portal. She finds a few portals.
Yes.
She seems to be doing just fine by herself, making her way through all of the places the Time Bandits needed a map to find.
That's right.
So she seems like she's, at least if we judge by this episode, she's poised to do something heroic before the end, right?
Correct. One of the first images that we saw of this show, before the show even aired, was an image of the Time Bandits standing in the forest. And Saffron was in that image, and she's dressed up in some sort of uniform or some sort of costume. So it's kind of been known that Saffron is going to get into the fray. We just didn't know how it was going to happen. So yeah, it's neat that it was revealed this time. I'll correct you. She's not a teenager. So Kevin's 11, and she's Kevin's little sister. So she's either 9 or 10. I thought
she was an older sister. All right. Now I stand corrected. She's as smart as a teenager.
Definitely. As sassy as a teenager, too.
Yes, that's right.
The thing in the fridge is a great sight gag, but it also is a huge plot hole, because I don't think Kevin's parents, who are so into TV and convenience, would be buying fresh fruits and vegetables. I imagine their fridge is full of processed foods and a lot of DoorDash getting ordered.
I think Kevin's out doing the shopping.
Probably so, yeah. He's the wisest one to do so. So meanwhile, Kevin is experiencing the sadness that Cassandra foresaw. He's lamenting his parents' not death, but the fact that they were cold. while Widget and Penelope are still on mission to get Kevin back home with his parents. Widget's still not quite there with his calculations. He thinks they're in Central Paris, 1968. He's miscalculated by a few million years, it looks like. Yeah, did you have any notes before I start going into to our scene with Biddleg here, Anthony?
I think that this scene is still kind of the same joke repeated from the previous episodes, that they're just trying to get Kevin off of their little band of bandits, right?
Sure.
Still trying to get rid of him. They don't think that he's got much value. And so Kevin's relationship to all the adults in the entire show is that of something of disrespect. And that's going to change this episode. But this scene was important to establish. Yes, indeed, Kevin still has the same problem he's always had. He's misunderstood by adults, and he's not really respected much by anyone in the show.
That's kind of true. Yeah. And we find out, this is interesting, that Widget used to date Fiona. And so everybody kind of changes their tune about Fiona when this is brought up. I thought that was an interesting revelation.
She has amazing hair.
Well, she could comb it a little bit or condition it. But other than that, it's good potential hair. Yes.
I think the issue with the hair is they're in hell, you know? And they're
Fried,
like always
frizzy.
hanging out with rocks. There's just, unless you keep it in like a shower cap or
I would
a
imagine
swim
that all
cap.
the best hairdressers hang out in hell just a little bit.
I mean, it comes with the job when you're a hairdresser.
My sister is a hairdresser by trade.
Okay.
And I'm pretty sure she's going to hell.
It's from Anthony, and he would know. So sorry, Anthony's sister.
This is just my professional opinion.
Right.
What's your unprofessional opinion?
We'll talk about that off air.
All right.
So Biddleg is our hunter, gatherer, and cook of the. We already knew that Biddleg was the cook of the group and the strongman of the group, but he's also the hunter, gatherer of the group as well. He gets attacked by a pterosaur, and the group flees through a portal, and Kevin joins along a few moments late, but he still makes it, and he takes that dinosaur fossil with him. I had a comment about the gang itself, because Biddleg wears like 4 hats, right? Well, 3 hats right there. He gathers the food, he cooks it, and then he's the strong man. We know Penelope is the quasi leader. Widget is the map reader. So the 3 of them have pretty important jobs. And then we have Alto and Judy, and I'm hoping that you guys can maybe chime in on their importance. I'm seeing Alto as an actor. He's kind of the chameleon of the group. We haven't really seen him done a lot to pull his weight at this point. Do y'all have any comments about that?
I mean my sense is that these guys were like colleagues in like
Yes.
like some kind of heavenly greenhouse.
Yeah, the floral department. Yes.
I don't think that there was a sort of a keen selection process that went into choosing who got to be on the team. It just happened to be whoever was working with flowers that day were recruited, stole the map, and left. I don't know if you've ever had colleagues that are sort of not
Just
not
there?
as they're just kind of taking up space. That's my sense. Now, Judy, for instance, I think is learning what it means to be a leader. Am I right to think that that's Judy? She's
Yes.
the one that is asking about leadership.
Correct.
All right. So I think that there's something about her that allows for a number of gags.
Sure, gag heavy, but usually when you have a gang of people like this, a gang of 5, like a band of the hand, you would say, it's like everybody has their thing. And it's true that Judy has her thing. Like she's an empath, and we're calling her she because her character on the show is definitively female. We know that the actor who plays her is binary, but non-binary, right?
Yeah.
But Judy is definitely a she. She's the empath, supposed to be the communicator of the group. Alto is supposed to be the actor, chameleon of the group to kind of talk them out of trouble and stuff. I haven't seen them come into play yet, I guess is what I'm saying. And I didn't know if maybe you guys could prove me wrong. James, how about you?
Say that again.
Can you prove me wrong about Alto and Judy, how we haven't really seen their shine yet?
Well, you said an actor style. I think, or not even an actor, probably the person of diplomacy, like true diplomacy, not how Lisa Kudrow's always, going in and doing this bull spit, almost swore right there.
Yeah.
A kind of like toying with them and trying to kind of be like a bard or a thief, like using charisma to BS their way through these things. Okay. He is just truly like, oh no, like this is what we should be doing, minus the part later on where doesn't he fake dead, as you said, the actor of the group?
He did successfully. Yes, he did.
So yeah, I think that's his thing. And then Judy, I think Judy's there to learn. The learner of the group.
The learner. And yeah, she's doing a good job of learning and paying attention and trying to apply the skills she's learning along the way. All right. Well, when they jump in that time portal, true Time Bandit style, they crash into the roof of a home in medieval England. We're guessing somewhere between 1100 and 1400 AD. The bandits don't seem too torn up over the fact that Kevin's not with them. And when he shows up later, it's just kind of like an aside, like, oh, great, he made it. And Penelope, in true Time Bandit fashion, tries to pay off the couple with some candlesticks. I liked that scene a lot, where she was trying to make up for the fact that she destroyed their home.
Did you guys discuss the skull yet?
No, not yet, not in detail.
So Kevin finds what he thinks is a fossil just laying out and about of a triceratops. And then he like comes back and he's like, guys, it's not a fossil, it's a skull. And then the big old dinosaur is behind them.
Right. The pterodactyl.
He's just like grabbing it and like, he's like, oh no, we got a jet set, and hoists it up above him and then starts running, and they're like, drop the skull, and he just says, no way, I'm bringing this everywhere we go now.
See, I guess he's going to do that from here on out, which is a pretty huge piece of article to carry around with you. Anthony, some House of the Dragon stuff happening here. We saw a dragon attack, or at least a dinosaur attack.
Yeah, I think that we have like some kind of like origins for the mythology of dragons in the medieval period, right? Okay. You know, if there was a time portal and they happened to see a pterodactyl, you know, you can kind of come up with the idea that, you know, there's proof that dragons exist.
Right.
I think that was probably a baby triceratops skull. That thing was pretty small, pretty light.
Yeah.
And also, I will say, Kevin, for all of his judgmentalness about being a bandit, he steals that fossil. He wants to take it with him. He doesn't leave the fossil behind. And now that fossil's in medieval England, maybe he's getting a little taste for the banditry part of the team.
Yeah, because now that skull can't become a fossil, so I hope this pays off. They go to a museum later, like when everything's all said and done, and there's just like almost all of a triceratops skeleton minus the head as a fossil, and he's like, oh boy.
Well, we know they messed with the time continuity of everything with the portals being open, so I think Anthony was on the precipice of like a great point there, that like perhaps the dragon culture spurned from this Time Bandits visit to the medieval period, and that's where the whole dragon thing came from.
Yeah, this is sort of the origin story for Targaryens in this episode.
Absolutely. Let's see. Yeah, next up we check in with Pure Evil, who's playing Monopoly with the gang. Damon brings some news of a secret project that the Supreme Being is in the midst of. And then Fiona the Huntress checks in. She has Kevin's stench, and we'll find her. I had two notes for this scene. The first being that we learned the Cape Bearer's name. I like this guy, the bald-headed fellow with the predominant nose. He's John. I like that they just gave him the name John as opposed to the other cool names everybody has.
Yeah. Do you think he was? You think he was okay with that? Do you think it was sort of like John? I don't get a cool sounding name.
Maybe that's his punishment. Maybe that's part of the punishment. I
like that. Like
when he was on Earth, he had this awesome name, and now he's just John. And I had to point out the demon dog, James. Remember last week we were talking to Greta, who was one of the stunt performers on the show. She doubled for Penelope. And she was telling us that the demon dog, who's played by Shane Rangi, gifted her a guitar and a songbook, and they wrote music together while they were filming Time Bandits. So after they would get off work, they would jam, and these songs are going to be published soon and used in a show that she's going to be acting in called Territory.
Nice.
And it's that demon dog back there. That's the impetus of all that. How can that be?
Hey, man, demon dogs are the best at music, man.
I guess you're right. He's got that low register. I like their doorbell they have, too. I kind of want to get one of those installed in my house, too. The screaming doorbell?
Just screaming?
Yeah.
No, that's not a doorbell. I think that is a telephone ringing.
Yeah, that's right. She wasn't the door. She was on some kind of Zoom call with him, I suppose.
Would you like me to clip that and I'll send it to you as an MP3? Then you can upload it to your phone as a... That would be the... Don't do that. I will not do this. That would be so rude if all of a sudden you're like in a movie theater and then just screaming starts. People would be freaked out. They're like, this is the Minions. Why is there screaming like this?
I would not do that, but it'd be very similar to like what Anthony did on his podcast, where like anytime Melanie would drop a truth bomb or say something divisive, the dragon roar would all of a sudden come up as a soundbite. So
yeah, I would say divisive for sure. Truth bomb. I don't know if there's much. I don't know what Melanie's relationship to the truth actually is.
I don't know. She raises some points sometimes.
But
sometimes
she would be an expert on sort of evil people in general. I think that you could have her on as kind of an expert for the pure evil part of this show.
I have thought about it. Believe me, I have thought about it before. I don't know if I'm brave enough to ask her because I think she would say yes, but I gotta work up the courage to do so. I don't know.
You guys were describing this person. I'm like, they sound awesome.
I
love. Is it little sister or big sister energy?
Big sister energy.
Oh yeah, big sister energy.
Sister energy
for
sure.
Either I'm good with. My sister notoriously was on a table read of Formulaic, a podcast that I do, and just automatically everyone's like, man, James sucks. Louise is so much better. And I'm like, you guys met her for like 4 minutes, okay?
Yeah. All right. I'm going to go up next here. We got the Time Bandits. They're eventually accepted into the town and enlisted to disperse. Did I miss anything here?
No.
Not really. Yeah. They're eventually accepted into town and enlisted to disperse of the Sheriff of Nottingham. Because in our last episode, they were greeted, very welcomed as strangers. In this area, strangers, not quite so much. They got to convince the group that they're dragon slayers, I suppose.
Yeah.
And they're all eating acorns. That's what the town's eating. They're undergoing a famine right now. Is there any truth to people eating acorns back then, Anthony?
So I don't know how much acorns were consumed during the period. I know that famines were an issue. And because of that, sometimes you would be tempted to go hunt in the king's property.
Gotcha.
And you might go and try to take down a stag with a bow and arrow, and because the king has all kinds of animals on his property. And sometimes that would get you landed in jail and tortured, which is a big part of this episode. So food was an issue. And when you were feeling a lack of it, you might turn Robin Hood, which I think is the premise of this whole gag.
Okay, that makes total sense. All right. Yeah, we got Sean Micallef as the town mayor here. I like his vibe a lot. I immediately liked him.
Real quick, I always smell my milk to make sure it hasn't turned Robin Hood.
Yeah, very good. Good on you.
We got Matt King showing up, and at first I thought he was playing the Sheriff of Nottingham himself, but he's playing a character called De Plume, who works right underneath of the Sheriff of Nottingham with his nice black and red leather ensemble. Pretty nice. And the last real note I have here is when they're in the tavern, we learn more about Penelope's ex-fiance, Gavin, and she's lamenting to Judy about this. And I guess to us, the audience, just reminding us that there's a lost love out there that she is still pining for. Yeah.
All right. So in this version of the story, we haven't met the cowardly lion, right? That would be the Prince John. The sheriff, I think, was the wolf. And wasn't there a snake, like a Sir Hiss? Sir Hiss was there was a snake, and then there was sort of a bumbling. You remember the Disney Robin Hood? Come on now.
That's what I was pretty sure you were referencing. Yeah, and I'm like, I know all these.
The good guys are foxes and bears.
For real foxes, okay.
And there's a hen. There's a sexy hen. And then, of course, the bad guys are the snakes and the wolves, and those are the people walking around taxing the poor Sherwood Forest. Steve, you've never seen the Disney Robin Hood. Oh, I'm missing out.
I guess I am. Is it too late? I guess it's not too late to see it.
It's too late.
I'm watching children's shows now, so can I continue doing so?
Sorry. You haven't seen it by now.
Well, so yeah, the townsfolk enlist them to disperse of the evil sheriff. First, they agree. They think they're going to be taking down the dragon, which is no problem for them. But the Sheriff of Nottingham's a different story. Penelope is standing pretty strong and brave here when the sheriff shows up. She doesn't like being called a coward, but they're outnumbered by DePlume's men. There's 8 of them. So that's one more than Biddleleg can handle. So they're hauled off to jail and held prisoner.
That was such a funny joke.
Yeah, it is. And
I laughed pretty hard. I don't know why it's such a silly joke, but it just got me. That one just got me. Because, I thought he was going to die. I thought for sure he was going to get eaten by the pterodactyl because he's the one guy that's actually from the medieval period. And so you think that they would have a leg up knowledge-wise with him on their team. But he seems just as bumbling and as stupid as the rest of them.
Wait, is he from, I don't know, Time Bandit stuff? Do they pull people from timelines and say like, hey, you work for us now?
In the first episode that they said he was like some kind of Norse invader or something. I don't know where these people come from, but they seem to come from all over different periods.
Okay.
So not sure about that. Anyway, I thought for sure he was going to die. And also he's the only one that kind of has a real superpower, right? The map reader, he doesn't really, the empath isn't really great at, the leader's not really great at being a leader. He's the one guy who's the strongest 7 men. And I thought, that they're not really utilizing his strength much. But of course, if you have more than 7 men, that's all it takes.
I, for this entire time, just thought Penelope, is that Lisa Kudrow?
Yes.
I just thought Penelope was embellishing, like, yeah, he's look at him. He clearly has a strength of 7 men. But then when we get to where they're in the jail cell now, and he just like bends those bars, I was like, he really has the power of 7 men.
But they're 7 average strength men.
Right.
They're 7 of me. They're not 7 of actually strong men.
Like Brian Cage from AEW.
Another one went right over my head there.
He's really strong, guys.
I bet
Trust me.
Big muscle man.
He picked up Matanza, I think.
Matanza. I couldn't imagine.
Jeff Cobb, you might know him as that.
Well, I'll be. Anyway, Judy and Biddleleg, I think they have some kind of secret connection. Biddleleg is being really silly in the jail cell. I watched this a few times, and I don't know what prompted him to be silly and to like copy people's voices the way he was.
Oh, I know. Because Judy is not talking, he is playing on her. Maybe she truly is an empath. I think they're insinuating that she is speaking through him.
I knew there was some sort of connection, but I couldn't quite catch it. And I mean, I don't want to spoil anything, so we won't go ahead too much, but this is laying the groundwork.
He might think an empath is like telepathy and all of that, so he might be just like thinking that that's what should be happening.
Maybe so. Kevin never seems to be in the thick of danger. He's here in a dungeon about to be tortured. And he's showing his parents around. He's still having a great time. He's like, this is a real life dungeon, parents. How you like this? They meet the prisoner next door, or the lady next door who's chained up next to them. It's a comedian named Margelle McClone, who plays the lady in chains, is what she's credited as. Yeah. Any notes here before I move on from the prison scene?
Yeah, very Monty Python to have her keep her hands up for the entire episode. She never puts her arms down.
Yeah.
That's absolutely a Terry Gilliam gag for sure.
As for the jokes, I mean, I didn't write down any of the jokes that I thought were funny, or I'm not really highlighting them because every line of dialogue is funny to me. None of the jokes fall flat. And it's like 3 jokes per 15 seconds, and it's hard to keep up with them all.
When we were talking about the Scream, I should have mentioned that because I think we glossed over that.
A little bit.
They're talking to Susan. No, not Suzanne. Who's the rock lady?
The rock lady?
The rock lady. She turns into rock sometimes. And
Fiona.
So she calls and says, don't worry. I have the boys reeking stench, and that's what we should start calling like puberty. Like, oh, they got the reeking stench.
Yeah, perfect. I'm going to start using that.
Just to make it worse for teens.
Yeah, totally. I can still say that to Charlotte too. She still lives at home, so I can still do that.
Okay, I regret saying this.
Too late. That's on tape. They're taken before the Sheriff of Nottingham, and he is the sheriff because of his dragon skills, apparently. And he proclaims that tomorrow he's going to burn the village to the ground and torture the bandits. We got our Sheriff of Nottingham here, played by Con O'Neill. Great character actor. He's been in lots of stuff. Recently, he's been in The Batman, and he played a character in Chernobyl, which, I mean, Chernobyl is like top tier TV. He played a character that was in every episode of that. And I hate to say it, and I do know that, you know, some of the Time Bandits cast and crew have been tuning into this podcast, but I wasn't, that's what took me out of this episode, guys, was the Sheriff of Nottingham. I know he's supposed to be annoying and over the top, but it just didn't do it for me. It fell flat to me. And I don't think it's the fault of the actor.
Oh, I couldn't disagree more. I thought he was great. I loved him. Wonderful, wonderful performance. I felt like you needed a different tone against whenever you've got a group of comedians working all together. Who is going to set a tone that's different, because now the comedy can play off a different sounding board. And I thought he was, you could just have sort of a nondescript bad guy, but I kind of felt like I needed something to distinguish him from the Sheriff of Nottingham, or the, not the sheriff, but the, who was the underling?
De Plume.
Yeah, De Plume. So I thought that the tonal shift was important for that character. And I quite enjoyed him. So you and I can disagree on this, Steve, but I liked that tonal shift.
I would agree with you, or I would have agreed with you. This whole storyline wasn't really like, I was like, oh man, it's just like mean people doing mean things. But when they changed and they were like, oh wait, yeah, if no one's torturing, like none of us get tortured. That's when I was like, oh, okay, this is really good and funny. I very much enjoy this now.
Okay. See, when I first watched this episode, the first time through, I mean, I disliked the sheriff so much that like I walked away from the episode like kind of like, oh, this is the one I asked Anthony to come on. This is disappointing. I watched it for a second time and I was like, well, wait, I was able to pinpoint it at that time. I was like, I pretty much like everything about this with the exception of the portrayal of the sheriff. So, I mean, I'm me and I stand by my opinion of that, but I'm glad I'm proven wrong about both of
the show. I mean, it wasn't, I don't feel like it was a huge time suck on the show, even if he wasn't your speed.
That's right.
But I do enjoy the idea that how many evil characters in history could have just been distracted with an iPhone and taken off the board.
Absolutely.
You don't have to go back in time to kill a despot. Go back in time, give him an iPhone. He'll be completely disinterested in everything else and stop doing evil.
Oh, I like this. This is another note I have from this scene. When he calls Kevin forth and he wants to talk to Kevin because he doesn't like some of the stuff Kevin's saying. I like the way that Penelope comes up beside Kevin and stands beside him the whole time. She definitely didn't have to do that. And I did enjoy that little development because you were saying, Anthony, how they, you know, the Time Bandits aren't really loving Kevin necessarily. But yeah, she was saddling up beside him, seeing danger, helping the guy out. So,
because at this time, Kevin is saying that's not a dragon, that's a triceratops. Right. And that is absolutely not one animal. It's many amalgamations. And this gets the Sheriff of Nottingham very upset to the point where he says, who is this small person with window eyes? And I'm like, they had glasses back then, right?
Nope. I don't think
they did.
If you did not have good sight, guess what? Your world was blurry. That's just the way it goes. I think it was Benjamin Franklin. I think Benjamin Franklin was, bifocals.
Bifocals is what he invented. Yeah. But that means that probably soon before that is when glasses came about. I don't think
we had glasses until the modern period. Go ahead, James.
One of the first recorded pair of glasses were made in 1284 by Salvino da Marte in Italy. So maybe they hadn't come to England yet.
Okay, here's my hot take. Salvino was one of the townspeople, saw the glasses that Kevin was wearing and thought, oh, I get it. I can invent this. Took his ideas to Italy, where there's more wealth and more spaghetti.
Well, also less dinosaurs.
And then he gets rich. He gets rich off of the invention of glasses.
These time portals are screwing everything up. I think that's a solid theory. Sweet Child of Time is brought to you by Zencastr. Zencastr helps us make Sweet Child of Time. When I schedule an episode, I send the link out to my co-hosts and whoever the guest may be. We all get in a room together, an online room, of course. We all record locally on our microphones, and when we're done, we all have individual files we can download for easy editing. You can either record video or audio. If you'd like to choose Zencastr, go to zencastr.com/pricing. Use the promo code Sweet Child of Time for 30% off any paid Zencastr plan. If you want to have the same easy experience I've had with podcasting, choose Zencastr. It's time to share your story. So I'm going to move on to Saffron. We had this is our last check-in. No, I'm sorry. This is our second check-in with Saffron. She's now aboard the ship of Madame Chung. She's looking for her nerdy Kevin. Madame Chung recognizes Kevin and directs Saffron to the correct water portal to jump into.
Okay, I'm going to pause you here. I have a question my son asked.
Okay.
What is the best name that is also the name of a food?
Oh, like a name of a person that's also a name of a food?
Yeah, because Saffron is pretty, that's a pretty cool name. I haven't heard that before. That would definitely beat up vanilla. That was the best thing that we could come up with. Vanilla or cocoa. I don't know if, can you think of another name? It's actually a decent name that's also just the name of a food.
For
you go ahead,
humans
James.
or pets?
Humans. Oh, no. Pets don't count.
Okay. Yeah, because Butter's out.
We do know of two. My wife and we used to work with a woman at Applebee's, and she had, I think it was two nephews. Their names were Lemangelo and Orangelo, which is lemon jello and orange jello. Yeah. So I got to say, those are the best I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah, that's pretty decent. Pretty decent.
How
what
about
you,
James?
James? Got anything?
I mean, I would call, like, if I had a kid, I'd call him Hot Dog, but
yeah, Hot Dog's pretty good.
But I don't know for like that's got to be a middle name, and that's a in quotes nickname that you say, hey, come on, Hot Dog.
Yeah.
But no, I was like Jughead, but Jughead's not. Hey, Cherry.
Yeah,
Cherry
that's pretty good.
Yep.
I think Saffron's up there. I mean, these are some strong names, but I do like the idea of a person named Saffron. I don't think I've ever met one, but it makes me like this character just that much more.
I think all the spices are really good fodder. Pepper, nutmeg, cinnamon.
These are pornography names, Steve.
Yes. And they are also names.
Pornographers thought this was going to be a family show, and now you've taken this to the place where we should all be ashamed at this last comment by Steve Barnes.
Oh, I should take us all to prison, which is exactly where our next scene is. It takes place back in prison where our gang is. They quickly escape. They can escape prison any old time. I don't know why they wait, but they take the lady in chains with them. And this is, James, is where I thought about you, because when they help the woman in chains escape, she's lamenting about being a witch and the different things that she has to go through. And her whole cadence and the way her whole joke setup is, it reminded me of listening to your podcast. It sounded like a bit that you would do.
Dang. Thank you.
I don't know if you caught on to that or not, or if you were like, that's exactly my style or not.
I was just like, this is good.
It was good, but it had James written all over it.
I loved how she was saying, how come they haven't burned you? And she's like, well, yeah, they want me to heal them. They're bad.
They're warts.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, she's like, the hypocrisy hurts, but the torturing hurts worse. That's totally like a Norm Macdonald joke. I think he's told that joke a few times. They escape. They go back into town to inform the town mayor about that their village is going to get burned down. Thanks to Kevin, the bandits stick around to help devise a fear-based tactic to help the villagers get rid of the sheriff. They tried to involve ghosts and witches in the tiny prison box, which is a video Kevin made inside his phone to try to trick them. doesn't work out at all.
What would have been a better use of that phone? I'm trying to think. Like that's actually not a bad like.
I thought it was a great idea. Yeah.
It's not a bad idea. You've got limited battery life on that phone, but that's fine. You need it in this moment. What would have been a more effective use of technology?
I mean, we brought it up. It's supposed to be a family show, but if you just showed the hub on there, he'd go like, whoa, this is crazy. This is devilry.
And they would be tapped to that thing
mesmerized.
Forever. Yes.
Mesmerized.
I was thinking, honestly, like an audio file of some sort, some kind of like loud scream or some kind of
this would sort of be
noise.
the Back to the Future method. Remember when Back to the Future, Marty McFly takes a Walkman with Van Halen and he's wearing some kind of suit to make him seem like a spaceman.
Right.
Puts the earphones on his father who's asleep, and then it's just Eddie Van Halen's guitar cranked up to the highest decibel to kind of psychological
torture. Yeah.
I think that's an interesting use of technology. There's something about, I don't know, maybe like a flash. I mean, I guess it's daytime, but if you use the flashlight function,
yeah,
they would have never seen something like that before.
I think Kevin did the wisest thing, but the sheriff was just hip to technology. It seems like he had like a clairvoyance when it came to the using a phone, actually.
Well, no, he said, now I have the magic. I think he believes it's magic, but he's like, no, I have them now.
Right.
You have no dominion over me because I have dominion over them.
Yeah.
And he was even playing like his forest game as well. He was playing a game about gathering stuff in the forest. Yeah, that makes total sense.
And, it's too bad Kevin's parents aren't here to see him use technology in this way. They would have been so proud of him.
He would have gotten a hug.
How to turn on his phone.
His sister would have been psyched about that one, that he actually used it for something. But yeah, it got taken away. I'm not sure if he got it back or not. I'm going to assume he got it back because, everybody got one-upped on the sheriff there. But first, I want to mention that Penelope, Widget, and Biddleg are planning to use the time portal to help. They run off to do so. I mean, we know from the end of this episode, all they really do is they gain some experience. Other than that, they don't really do much to help anybody in this episode.
Well, let me say this.
Yes.
This was an important episode for a couple reasons. One, I think that the bandits themselves have done something altruistic, right? They are not totally selfish. In the previous episodes, it was just about what can we steal, what can we do for ourselves, and how can we escape. In this one, they decide we're going to stay, and it's not altruistic immediately. It's a little bit like, maybe they'll heap wealth on us if we help them slay their imaginary dragon. Eventually, Penelope decides, I don't like getting called a coward. And she's, like you said, she stands next to Kevin when they're being interrogated. And then eventually they teach medieval England about democracy. So this is a huge shift in the show. You're not thinking that these people are without goodness, right? There's a little gleam of goodness in their hearts, and it makes you want to root for them in a new way.
I agree with all that. I didn't quite, now that you verbalize it, it's very clear, but it wasn't as clear to me before as it is now. So yeah, thank you very much for for pointing that out. Because
now, of course, Kevin also leaves his iPhone behind, creating a time paradox. And I'm sure that will cause a lot more problems than he solved, but we won't blame him too much for that.
I'm not sure if he left his phone behind or not, because they were there for a while. Like they dispatched of the sheriff, and then they hung out for a few weeks before the rest of the gang showed up. So
the battery life dead, and he's going to throw it in the river. Is that what's going to happen?
I believe this is like a magic TV phone that never needs to be charged.
Gotcha.
That it gets charged by the extras when the scene says cut.
Or maybe on the back there's a little solar panel to recharge his phone.
There you go. Yeah, his dad's into technology. He figured it out.
Absolutely. And was this porta potty that they were communicating through to the guys, is that period specific as well? Is that kind of how bathrooms worked back then, Anthony?
I hope not. Oh my gosh.
Good.
I don't think that anyone had an upstairs bathroom in any village in medieval England But, it's not a bad design if that's what you were going to do. I would just want there to be some kind of pit below Earth.
Yes.
And some sort of, maybe like a chimney or something that would allow gravity to do its work.
Okay, see, I thought that was just a wormhole that they were in and they were poking their head out to talk, like that was the time hole that they were in.
A different kind of wormhole.
Okay.
There, James.
It was a toilet. And yeah, at least there was an air gap. See, I work in the water and the wastewater industry, so I know the importance of an air gap sometimes. So there was definitely an air gap between that toilet and the receptacle that it goes into.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, as we mentioned, Kevin talks the sheriff's men into rebelling against the sheriff. There's a huge power shift, yet another save by Kevin. The Plume follows suit pretty quickly. He's pretty easy to talk into the democracy ways. He finds some profound wisdom towards the end of this episode. The village is seemingly at peace. As you mentioned, Anthony, Kevin's teaching them more as Penelope shows up with her portrait of Gavin. Biddleg brings food for the gang. He brings eggs, which he thinks he's going to cook for the group. Doesn't quite happen that way because De Plume is eaten by a pterosaur here. The village screaming lady gets to scream one more time and the dragon attacks the village. So after all this good stuff that you were talking about, Anthony, they leave the town in disarray. Like there's this pterosaur attacking the town.
Maybe that's how they get away from the democracy thing. It's like if that hadn't happened, democracy would have spread, sort of building from the the momentum of the Magna Carta. However, because the town was decimated by a dragon, the Dark Ages will continue.
I mean, the parallels to the House of the Dragon are many, not just the dragon and its menace, but also my dislike of the sheriff is much like people who watch House of the Dragon weren't really pleased by the arrival of Abigail Thorne, taking up a lot of time in episode 8. So there was a big complaint about that, not necessarily against that actor, but just that they just didn't like that portrayal.
Well, let me say this about this show. I've seen more interesting action on the high seas than Hot D gave me for the entire second season.
You're actually right about that. And we have like main characters in House of the Dragon that are supposed to be seabound. And they were just hanging out.
How many scenes they did on that same set that's supposed to be right by that ship with none of the characters getting on the ship?
They were shining it, getting it ready, getting it seaworthy, making chants and prayers, I guess.
So earlier when you guys were talking about a fantasy league for House of the Dragon,
yeah,
I was like, I got to get some toilets ready to give these nerds a flushy. Why can't I swirly? And now I'm like, yeah, I got to get them ready again.
You're not a House of the Dragon guy?
No, I've watched literally zero Game of Thrones stuff.
Oh, all right.
And James is so above like nerds and nerd culture and stuff. He's a jock type, man who likes.
My thighs are as wide as a human head,
Exactly.
That's a real thing. I measured my spouse's head, then one of my thighs, and it was like, they're the same diameter now, baby.
Yeah.
I work at a comic book store.
Yeah, exactly. So yes, you can still look down on us though, us nerds in our fantasy league. We're still a step below you. Is that what you're saying?
No, I was kidding.
We're never kidding on the show. Everything is serious as can be. Cats are very serious on the show. We found out towards the end of this episode that what they were saying earlier about cats being evil, they were saying the Pope declared cats are evil. The Pope was correct. This cat, Mr. Boots by name, tries to kill the bandits by pushing some kind of statue on them. So I was very dismayed by this part.
Yeah, this is the most realistic part of this science fiction show.
This guy, Anthony here is disparaging cats, and he's made some claim that like cats are evil. They want us dead.
Yeah, they want us dead. They would murder us if they could. They are in league with the devil. They are spying for demonic forces. All of the above.
That's why I keep them around.
You got to be on their good side.
Yeah.
See,
if a cat kills me, good. They did something I couldn't do myself. And hey,
James.
I mean, I can be in league with the devil. That's all I want.
That's been what you wanted forever since high school. I know. I want to give you that wish now that you mention it. Middle school. I didn't know it went that deep, James.
Yeah, I was a little hellion.
All right. Well, let's see. Our last scene. We get our outro scene here when Saffron arrives back in Troy 12 BC. Like Anthony said before, she's diligently following the footsteps of the bandits, but she doesn't have a map. She's just going by instinct and clues.
Pretty easily. No map, no help, no guide. Seems the language barrier doesn't seem to affect her at all.
Nope.
Pretty impressive.
Middle of a battle, too. She shows up right in the middle of a battle, and nobody seems to bat an eye to her. Fiona sniffs and follows. That's my last note, is that's the last scene we see is Fiona sniffing and following behind. Mm-hmm. So she's hot on their heels. Yeah, James or Anthony, any last words for us?
I'm really digging the special effects with Fiona. Is it? Yeah. I think it's Fiona.
Fiona.
I don't think I've seen that particular take on the like a demonic face before.
Okay.
I really like it. Whoever the art director was that came up with that particular aesthetic, I'm digging it.
Yeah. We like to talk about Rachel House. She's the actress that plays Fiona as well. A great actress, and she's an acting coach as well, and she worked as acting coach on Time Bandits in addition to playing Fiona. Yeah, do you have any last thoughts, James?
Yeah, I got a few. I really liked when Penelope and company come back to the time thinking, hey, it's only been a moment since we left. And they're like,
right.
It's been months. And then Kevin says, they're making me get married tomorrow. And he's going to have to become a working Joe. And when the pterodactyl comes, they're like, dragon! And Kevin says, it's just a large lizard creature with wings. And they're like, that's what a dragon is.
Which is an excellent point. I was wondering about Kevin's future wife because, like, as somebody who's done, like, background work in acting before, I remember, like, us background actors, we didn't have any roles, didn't have any names or anything. But then a couple people got selected to have speaking roles and to get names. And so that's a big deal, is to be able to speak and to have a named role. So this character that played Kevin's future wife had a name, but she never got to say any lines. So I'm wondering if she is considered a background actor or if she's a character actor.
My guess would be she did have a line and they had to cut it or something. Otherwise,
that's a good point.
Why go to the trouble of giving that person a name? Unless that person's going to come back into the story later.
Oh, I just thought this was like a classic comedy bit of like is about to speak but does not get to speak.
Okay. Well, that works good for the cinema industry too, because they don't have to pay her as much in that situation. So yeah, I'll close us out with this. Anthony, every episode we decide which of these times represented that we would like to go to, like right now. So we have a choice of 5 right now. We've got medieval England, we got prehistoric times, we've got 1812 Macau, we've got 1200 BC, and we've got Bingley 2024. So Anthony, as our guest, you get to choose first. Where are you going to go?
Macau, for sure.
Macau. Why is that?
Well, you're on the cusp. You're actually in modernity, but you're in a culture that's going to have serious technological advantages, and I would just say less dangerous than any of the. I don't have to worry about starving. I don't have to worry about dinosaurs eating me.
Right.
I don't have to be worried about being a human sacrifice. That would be my choice.
All right. How about you, James?
Because I don't want to pick from because there were time periods that we've seen before.
Correct.
So I don't want to choose from those. So, oh man, it's between being chased by dinosaurs or just the disgusting smell of the medieval era.
Yeah, those two choices. Then, if you're going to narrow yourself down, yeah.
I'll go there.
Where's there?
I want people to be around. I can't be hanging out with dinosaurs.
So you're going to medieval England. All right. It was my instinct to choose Bingley 2024, but I chose that last week, so I can't do that again. So I'm putting that on myself. So yeah, out of all these other places, I would choose medieval England. I'm not trying to copy you, James. I copied you last week too, but I have the exact same answer because I have the wastewater and the water industry skills.
Yeah.
Ooh, so I'd be helpful.
Have fun eating acorns every meal.
Well, if I had a skill, I would be like, I need to get in on some of this rabbit. So if you guys can help me out with some foraging.
Oh, I'd be able to tame cats, and they'd be like, "Whoa, you're clearly a man of God." I'd say, "Yeah, I guess," and then they'd give me more acorns.
Impossible. Cats cannot be tamed.
Oh, you should see how our cats were before we got them from the shelter.
Yeah, I
gotta fooling you. They are fooling you
because they're trying to murder you.
Butter, I'm still not sure on. Not that she's a demon, that I think she might have some neurological problems. She's still scared of everything. It's like, why are you scared of me? You can hear me coming up to you. You see me coming up to you. Then when I stop in front of you, she goes, and I'm like, why? What are you doing?
On this podcast, Anthony, my cat, Melissa, is famous for bringing birds in the house. Mm-hmm. She's an outside cat, so she'll go out and hunt birds, and she'll bring them in the house while they're still alive.
Yeah, trying to kill you with disease.
I suppose that is what's happening, and she's come close a few times. Like in the past 2 years, she's done this at least 8 times that I can count. There could be more because we have found a carcass before, and we're not really sure when it came into the house.
Yeah.
So she's evil to the birds around the neighborhood, but
in
the house she's a real sweetie.
I murdered for you.
Yeah, that's metal, dude.
I mean, I can't deny it. I guess I'm going to close this out here, guys. Did anybody all have any? Oh, wait, we got to do plugs first, of course.
Well, that's closing it out.
Yeah, that's closing it out. Anthony, before we leave here, do you want to let people know where they can find you and your podcasts?
Nope, doesn't matter.
All right. Well, I'll let them know then. He runs 2 podcasts. One of them is called Double Dragon, which he runs with his co-host comic Steve Osborne.
Yeah.
And they do action movies. Is that correct?
Properly Howard is like anything we want to cover. It's a lot of 80s movies, kind of like Time Bandits. We've covered. We not yet. That might be on the docket. We're going to do Severance coming up. When the show, Apple show Severance comes back, we'll be doing that with the Lorehounds. Most recently, we'll be doing a House of the Dragon Season 2 rewatch. Just do a search for Hot D Bald Move and you'll find that. And then, of course, Properly Howard, Double Dragon, other fine podcasts sold wherever podcasts are sold.
Right on. Thank you, Anthony. And I can't discount the fact that he's an author as well. So if you're a Game of Thrones fan, Anthony has either authored or co-authored. Maybe he'll correct me.
2 books, Gods of Thrones, Aaron, and I wrote these probably 4 years ago now. And maybe nerd out with some interest in Game of Thrones deep lore.
Yes.
Now, James, I have heard a lot about your podcasting exploits. I'm curious to hear you plug yourself.
Okay. Is it my turn?
It's your turn.
Hey guys, first and foremost, listen to my music under Marsh, Land, Monster, wherever music is found. That's 3 words, not 2. And as we've known, I do podcasts. Go listen to Mostly Speaking Sentai wherever podcasts are found. That's Nicole and I. We're going through the world of Super Sentai right now. It is technically, but not technically, a Super Sentai series. Toei's 1987's Spider-Man live action. It's a beautifully weird show. It's perfect. It's great. Go over there, listen to it, and listen to Sweaty Time Pro Wrestling with Sean and I. We're breaking down every single episode of Lucha Underground, a fantastic wrestling show. That's on the Marshland Media podcast feed on all podcast apps. Also, there is Death to Squids, where my friend Jose and I, we get blitzed roaring high, and we watch a sci-fi action movie. We've done all the Trancers movies. We did all the Cyborg movies. We just got done with the Starship Troopers, and we're going on to, I'm so excited, the Resident Evil movies. It's going to be a good time. And head over to patreon.com/MLMpod, where for $5 a month, you get exclusive content every single Friday. This Friday is This Existed. Or wait, I don't know what this Friday is because I don't know when this is being released.
It's being released on the 29th. So a lot of James's podcasts have already happened. You've heard me on there too. Hello again. And yeah, for my plug, it's real simple. sweetshotofTime.com. Come to the website. Check out all my podcasts there. My music is also found there, the music of Introvoid. And yeah, that's all I got to plug for myself. I want to thank our guest, Anthony. Anthony, talking to you, buddy. Thank you very much for coming on the podcast. I appreciate you returning the favor and showing up for us this week. Thank you.
Yeah, happy to do it. And if your listeners enjoyed this episode of Time Bandits, take a look at The Three Amigos. It is exactly the same plot.
All right.
Instead of the Sheriff of Nottingham, you have El Guapo.
That's right. I barely remember that movie, but yeah, I think I need to recheck that one out.
Worth a rewatch.
All right. And James, thank you as usual for popping in, co-hosting me along with this. And I'm going to say goodbye to everyone. So I hope you all find water and shade and shoes. Bye-bye.
Bye.
See ya.